What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast, episode 22, coming your way. My name is Meek, and I got my co-host Wu across the table. Wu, it's June. OTAs have started.
Hell yeah!
You can smell it, man. Like real fantasy football is coming around the corner.
Yeah, you know you follow your favorite teams on social media. They're posting some nice clips. And you're like, damn, I can't wait for them to play.
Right.
And in my case, I can't wait for them to play and then disappoint me. But still, the point stands.
They always disappoint.
The point stands. You see the clips on Instagram. You're like, oh, let's go. We're so close.
Yep.
We're so close.
I was telling Wu pre-show, so we have this redraft league that we love, hold close, near and dear to our hearts.
Greatest league on the planet.
Greatest league on the planet, the Bonnet Shores Fantasy Football League. If you know, you know.
That's where it all started.
But I've already started the work, Wu. I've started the reign or the trip back to the championship.
Somebody's got to do it.
I'm doing my homework already. I'm checking out people's keepers. So if you don't know what we do, we play in a 12-team keeper league, and we allow a keeper for each team. You only get one, but wherever you drafted that player last year, you get them 3 rounds earlier. So I'm scouting it out. I'm checking out some people who they can keep and things like that, because in turn that affects who I draft.
Right.
You know?
And then how long is it until you start planning out our first round completely?
Oh, because you know that's coming too.
Exactly.
So again, welcome to the show. Just a heads up, we have hit 1,200 plus plays across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. That's because the folks that are listening here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, it's because the folks who are watching here on YouTube. We appreciate you all. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials, Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. Make sure you give us a like, a follow on our socials. Leave a comment because you may see yourself on the show. Unfortunately, not this week. You will not see yourself on the show because we need. My quick question, Wu, is a wrap up. So we talked earlier, probably like a month and a half ago, that we joined a league called the Dynasty. We had Kyle on the show. And Kyle is the commissioner of that league. And we started, actually, we were supposed to start at June 1st.
Yep.
We talked Kyle in. We said, hey, man.
Yeah, we got to get this thing
going.
We got to
get this thing going.
Come on, we're all itching to make a pick.
And so, and he obliged. I appreciate the commission, for obliging. And he did. And we just hit the ground running. So I will give. Right now, we have 3 picks left in this draft, and we're done. So Wu's team's completely filled in. My team's completely filled in. But I will give you the floor. Will you tell me? We'll go through just our starting lineup, and then maybe a couple of bench people.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Why don't you go?
Yeah, I'll let it rip here since I was the one who started the draft.
You did. You legit started the draft.
I most certainly did. And you know, with the 101, I had to take the quarterback, the mobile guy. I know you're all thinking the same guy I am. And his name's Jaden Daniels. Listen, it's Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels. It's 1A, 1B for me in this startup draft. I did flip back and forth a lot. And honestly, the kicker was I've had Josh Allen in a Dynasty League before. I want to try something new. So we went Jaden Daniels with the 101. Super excited about that pick. It's gonna be a lot of fun watching Commanders games this year.
Yep.
So yeah, since I'm at I was the start of the draft, it was gonna be a while until my second pick. So I was like, you know what, Meek, I in my head I'm like, I gotta make a move here.
Make the moves.
And so, we're getting to the back of the first round, and I'm seeing a certain guy slip. I'm like, this is crazy. Like if I'm back there, I would have picked him already. So yeah, sure enough, we get to the 201, first pick in the second round. And Bijan Robinson is still sitting there.
Yep.
So I hit on my guy Bucky. I'm like, dude, we got to make a deal here. He was content with moving back. I was looking to move in. So yeah, I went up and traded for Bijan Robinson at the 201. Ended up having to give up my 4th round pick there, but I wasn't too mad about that. Bijan's a guy I can count on for the next God only knows how many years, probably the rest of his career.
Yep.
So I'm fine with that. And then when it came to my third round pick, this is the pick I kind of regret the most. But I try not to regret anything, so we're just going to move forward here. I took Kyler Murray.
Yep.
I wanted to have a team where I was kind of good at quarterback for a while. I didn't have to really worry about it. And I think that I'm still in the position to do so. But yeah, so we went Kyler in the 3rd. Like I said, I didn't have my 4th round pick. So then coming into the 5th and the 6th, I went back-to-back. I went Roman Dudze and Emeka Egbuka.
First wide receivers off the board, too. For you,
For
I'm
me,
saying.
Yep. Those are my first wide receivers. And listen, they're young. They're unproven. And listen, I've going through this draft, I was like, I'm going to compete in over the next 2 years. This year's not going to be my year, and I'm okay with that. So I got Rome, I got Ibuka, some promising young studs who are hopefully Rome can have that second year breakout, and I'm really excited to see what Ibuka can do. And then in the 7th round, I went some vet presence here. Took Alvin Kamara. He's a guy I can count on for a year or two.
Snaked my pick. That was actually who I was looking to take.
Yep. And I also thought, yes, he's someone I can start for a couple years. He's also someone I can trade to a contender if I need to sell out and continue my tankathon and add some more picks. So he was my next one. 8th round, I went TJ Hawkinson, another guy, another veteran presence. It's a tight end premium. I think it's 0.5 extra points.
0.25.
0.25.
Hold on, I actually had it written down. I believe it is 0.5.
Okay,
You're correct.
yeah, so 0.5. So I figured I'd pay up a little bit for a tight end. Again, another name who I can get some good years out of, or I can trade to a contender if needed. And then to finish out my starting lineup here, I got Tony Pollard, another veteran running back I can count on. Again, a trade piece. And then we continue the young wide receiver trend here with Jalen Noel out of Houston. And then to round out the rest of the lineup, I got Jake Ferguson. And yeah, I mean that's the rest of the lineup there. So listen, it's not I'm not in competition to compete this year. That's okay. I've accepted that. I even traded out of some more picks and took on some, 2nd and 3rd round picks over the next couple of years.
Right.
So listen, I know my mindset here, and I'll see you in 2028.
Yeah.
Listen,
I like the moves though with your 1st and 2nd round picks, especially trading in to get Bijan, because you're set at quarterback, you're set at running back, and it's now let's just play, let's fill in the rest of it. And the mindset that you go in with Dynasty is that you're not looking to win year one. You know what I mean? This is setting the foundation for multiple years to come. And, I like how you just came in and was like, all right, I'm going to get these blue chip players in these positions, and, I'm going to sort it out, through the rest of the year, make my trades throughout, and get my picks. So, I like the way you went with your team. Very nice. I think you are going to be hurting this year, especially with wide receiver.
Yep.
But like we said, Dynasty, you don't play for the year, you play for for the multiple years to come.
Exactly. And another thing that played into my decision to not necessarily try and win now. So a lot of these guys in this league, I'm pretty close with, good friends. So I'm happy to have this league going. A lot of good trade talks already, and we haven't even gotten into the season. But, after talking with a lot of them, going into this draft, pretty much, obviously it's a new league, so everybody's trying to win that first year.
Yep.
So I'm trying to use everybody trying to win now to my advantage, to try and kind of just fly under the radar, and make the trades that I need to compete for the future. So that was another thing that played into my mindset there.
I like that. So shifting over to your boy. So Wu had the number 1 pick. I actually had the number 3 pick. And going into this, the number 1 strategy I had, and I texted this to Wu on the side while the draft was going, was I didn't care. There were 2 things. It was, 1, I wanted as many wide receivers as I could handle early,
It's a good problem to have.
And number 2, I wanted to have multiple stacks. I wanted to and not try to reach for it. Get a stack to go with my first quarterback, a stack to go with my super flex quarterback, and I think I executed the plan to perfection in my opinion. So
I agree.
I had the 3rd round pick. So Daniels, Wu took Daniels, Josh Allen went off the board, and I'm sitting there and I had kind of hemmed and hawed on what I wanted to do, whether I could, start the plan early and take Jamar Chase, or, do I go this guy? And I went Lamar Jackson. I've never had the pleasure of, having Lamar Jackson on my lineup.
I've heard it's a lot of fun.
It definitely must be a lot of fun. And it's a dual threat quarterback, which we always we talk to you guys about, targeting, which is great. So I went Lamar Jackson. 2nd round pick came back. I took Nico Collins. I think he's someone who, depending on this year in this new system down in Houston, he could become an alpha wide receiver, which would be phenomenal. And you're probably thinking, Meek, did the train stop there with wide receivers? Absolutely not. I come back and I take Garrett Wilson.
Great pick.
To
Might be the pick
combo
of the
it.
draft.
I listen, Garrett Wilson in the 3rd round, where he is in a barren wasteland and no one else throws.
Please throw me the ball.
Yeah, you know what I mean? He's going to have 170 targets.
Yeah.
And then here's the interesting thing. Came back in the 4th round, and I kind of knew I was hurting at running back, and so I decided to trade back and acquire later picks, to fill out my roster. Janer wanted to move up, take my pick, and I said, sure, go for it. And so I acquired a couple more picks, but then with one of those picks, I was actually able to trade back into the 4th round, and I took Jonathan Taylor. Kind of was hoping for. I was kind of between him and Kyron Williams, but I decided to go with Taylor. Just that I think Taylor has a more kind of receiving presence. I know Richardson is there, but I don't think he's going to be there for long. And I think eventually that offense is going to turn into the Jonathan Taylor show rather than whatever they got with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
So then going back to, I think now, so that was my 4th round pick. I didn't have a 5th round pick, just through trades. But then in the 6th round, this is where I started. I went wide receiver again, and I was able to get Zay Flowers to stack with Lamar Jackson, which I was pretty happy with. I think Zay Flowers is an underrated guy where I think he's very forgotten in the offense in Baltimore. It's definitely like, Derrick Henry, Lamar's going to run the ball, and, they're going to work around the field. But, I think Zay Flowers is going to become a pivotal piece, they've tried to work in multiple wide receivers, whether it was Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins is there now, and he's not the same DeAndre Hopkins, but I can totally see Zay Flowers kind of starting to settle himself as the number one option in the passing game for Lamar Jackson. Andrews is getting old and older and things like that, so I was really happy with Zay Flowers. And then my 7th round pick, I had 2 6th round picks. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So my second 6th round pick, I took Jared Goff and I waited a lot longer for like a second quarterback in the Superflex league. And I was like, you know what, I'll let it sit. And I'm happy with Goff because we talked about Goff in our year in review season, and Goff's a 4,040 guy, so like if he can give me a season like that, like I'm in business.
He leads the charge for the best offense in the NFL.
Right, exactly. So that happens. Coming back for the rest of my roster, I had Lamar, Jonathan Taylor, told you about Joe Mixon, who I filled in as a second running back. Needed one badly. Obviously, we talked about Nico Garrett-Wilson. In the 12th round, I feel like this is kind of a sneaky steal, was Evan Ingram. And I feel like people were just kind of tossing him to the wayside like he's kind of garbage. I know he had an injury-riddled season in Jacksonville, but they paid big money for him to go to Denver. And, you give another weapon to Bo Nix, and it's not like it felt like in Jacksonville, his times there, it was all Evan Ingram, but now he doesn't have to be the focal point, and eyes can actually go off of him, and he can surprise. So I love that pick. Zay Flowers, I took DK Metcalf.
I was surprised by this pick.
I'm curious. Why were you surprised about it?
Because me and you are throwing him the ball right now.
Yeah.
So
2 things. One, I don't think Will Howard's going to be the quarterback come week 1. I think it's a done deal that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. I think he's playing games and just didn't want to come to OTAs and go through all the BS of that. So I think because there's no way they wouldn't have made a move already to bring somebody in Pittsburgh and get them up to speed on the offense instead of just saying, well, we're going to rely on 6th round Will Howard. Like, I think they're playing the Aaron Rodgers game because they have no choice. Like, that's the only thing they have.
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't come, DK is the only person who's getting targets in that offense.
Yeah,
if they decide to throw the ball, and again, we talk dynasty as long term. He may have a bad season this year. Fine, that's okay. I don't see Pittsburgh letting their quarterback conundrum continue into next year.
Valid point.
And DK is what I haven't looked at his age.
27.
27. Yep, yeah. He's 27 years old, so he's still got a couple of years left. And if he starts to show promise or a lot of targets, I trade him and I get some picks.
Sure.
My next flex was Jameson Williams. I have also not had the pleasure of having Jameson Williams. Really broke out last year in the Detroit offense. I'm a little nervous about him, especially with the change of Ben Johnson leaving. But I thought it was again, going back to my plan, making sure that I had a stack, and I had gotten Goff first, and then I got Jameson Williams to stack. So, that was pretty good. And then just a couple of bench players that I liked. Connor, Mr. Eternal himself. He's always reliable. I took the stab on Najee Harris. I think first half of the year, Najee this year is probably going to be mostly Najee before it turns into Hampton, and who knows, maybe I can flip him, get some value. But the one person I am so excited for, because I tried to get him in our dynasty league before and I was able to now, is Jalen Milroe, baby. Yeah. I'm excited about this one, and I'm totally okay with just letting this guy marinate on my taxi squad or whatever, and hopes that he will eventually become the starter in Seattle, because if he can develop as a passer, he's already an amazing athlete. He could be broken for fantasy.
Yeah, if Milroe had slipped to me in that 11th round before you took him, I wouldn't have traded out of the spot, because I did end up trading out of the 11th round. Milroe is absolutely a guy I was definitely monitoring the whole draft and kind of just seeing what the what the heat signal on him was. But I really like the roster here. You're definitely in a win now spot, but also backed by some youth. With Garrett Wilson, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, Jameson Williams, and I think you have the veteran presence in the right spots, like a Lamar, like a Jared Goff, a Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon. So I really like the complete build behind it. You have James Conner sitting there on the bench. God forbid there's an injury, or if your running backs are playing well, you can go ahead and move them, and there's other pieces involved there. So I really like the setup here. And you're definitely going to be in competition this first year for sure. Yeah,
I think this year I'm definitely in a win now mode. So my mindset going in is seeing how I'm going to do the first couple of weeks, and if I'm someone who's putting up a lot of points and coming out with those W's, like I won't be scared to throw out future draft picks in order to get that banner.
You got to make a decision quick for sure.
Yep. So there you have it. Those are our rosters. Maybe later in the week I may post them on socials for you guys to take a look and give you a vote, who did better, whether it was me or whether it was Wu, and we'll keep you posted as the year goes on.
100%.
So moving into around the NFL, a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight, just some quick buzz ones. Like I said at the top of the show, OTAs have started. Some people have kind of started to rise to the top, and so we've gotten some positive reports coming out of OTAs for these players. Wu, if you want to talk about anyone in specific, please let me know. But the people I have highlighted here is Jalen Knoll, wide receiver out of Houston, Trey Harris, wide receiver out of Los Angeles, Travis Hunter, cornerback and wide receiver out of Jacksonville, and Quinshon Judkins. Is anyone in particular that you see there that you're like, wow, I'm excited for?
Well, I've always been excited for Judkins. I sat here and said that he was my number 2 running back in this class, and I'm still going to stand on that. I'm not shy from that. So I'm really happy that he ended up in Cleveland. I think it's a great spot for him. The backfield is his to lose. So it's really, he controls his own destiny. Another name that I'm happy, especially now that he's on my team, is Jalen Knoll. I think he can slot into this Houston offense pretty quickly, especially with oh my God.
Tank
Dell. Yes, thank you. Especially with Tank Dell being out is probably going to be the whole year, and maybe even into sometime next year as well. Like that's going to be a long recovery.
Oh yeah, and really all he has to beat out is Christian Kirk.
Exactly.
For the starting slot role.
Yeah, and I think he can easily make his way into that offense. C.J. Stroud has the arm talent to feed more than one guy. Pass catching wise. So yeah, those are the 2 names that stick out to me. Definitely the Travis Hunter defensive clips that I've seen are insane, and it hurts.
It's what you were gonna say. It starts the thought process in your head. Like, is he really gonna play completely wide receiver?
I just had a thought.
Go ahead.
What if this Travis Hunter thing, it turns into a week-to-week basis on what position you're getting out of him? Hear me out. Because Jacksonville's weak at corner, we know that.
Yep.
So he's their best corner for sure. Let's be real. Let's say they go into a week of their playing. I don't know. Let me pull up their schedule real quick. We'll get real serious with this because I have a thought here.
Like I kind of like where this is going.
Okay.
I see what you're saying. If you're so essentially what you're trying to get at is predict the if this is a wide receiver week versus a cornerback week.
Correct.
All right, hit me
So
with
ready?
it.
I think this would be a good example. Carolina, week 1, young team. Sure, they got Tet. Still a couple unproven names there.
Ted toasted him in college too.
Maybe maybe this isn't the greatest example to start with. Okay, let me adjust here. All right, I got a better one. Seattle, week 6.
Yep.
Weak wide receiver room. I like JSN, but he still hasn't made it to those kind of that top range of names.
And he plays in the slot too, so like it's not like it's an outside X or wide receiver that
Correct.
you're like, Travis, go play him.
And we're not expecting Seattle to be super dominant offensive wise. So maybe week 6, they're like, hey, Travis, go play a little receiver for us. Don't worry about defense today. That's okay.
Yep.
And then they go week 7 against LA, the week after the Seattle game.
Go play Puka.
Go play against Puka. And don't worry about catching the ball because we need you on Puka all day.
Wow.
Is that something that gets incorporated here? Is that the happy medium between playing both positions?
I think it's gonna have to be a week to week watch where you're like guessing, but you could burn yourself and be like, okay, this isn't a week where Travis is gonna play a lot of wide receiver. I mean, prime example, right? You bring up the LA game, right? So let's just hypothetically say, because LA is a great offense, they hang like 35 points.
And now they're like, Travis, get in there.
Yeah, and now you've kind of burned yourself where you're like, I'm not thinking that this was a wide receiver week for him.
Sure.
And he, let's say he has a good game, so it's already started. You know what I mean? Like I think I need to see a full season of Travis Hunter in order
before you can have an actual decision.
Yeah, for like if I would want to go and trade for, I'm staying away from him entirely in all drafts, redraft and dynasty, because I need to see how it's going to work, with my eyeballs before I say, I'm going to invest in this.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty concurrent on that thought process, through the pre-draft stuff, and then, after the draft. I only have him in one league because I was in a spot to take him, and I was like, listen, I have to take him here just on the off chance that like it's like a no-brainer pick like 2 weeks into the season. It's like, why didn't we take Travis Hunter?
Right.
I just need to be sure. I need to cover one base with that. So that was my reason there.
Just have that one out.
But yeah, exactly. But yeah, when it comes to like redraft, I'd have to see what the ADP looks like, but then and like what other names is around there. But again, like the question marks, there's too many.
Actually, I might be able to give you, if you give me 30 seconds, I might be able to give you what his ADP was, or who's around him at least ADP wise.
Yeah.
But so going back to the people that we were talking about who we were excited for, I'm glad you actually brought up Quinshon Judkins, because I think he's going to be an absolute monster when it becomes like for redraft this year. As long as the offensive line can stay healthy and kind of keep the ball moving, I think and get into the red zone, I think he's going to have a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. So in full PPR, it looks like Travis Hunter is going at the 6-12.
Okay.
So around that, for other wide receivers that are going at the 6-12, you have, would you take Ted McMillan or Travis Hunter?
Ted McMillan.
Would you rather take Roma Dunze or Travis Hunter?
Roma Dunze.
Would you rather take Khalil Shakir or Travis Hunter?
Shakir's floor is crazy.
Yep.
Shakir.
Oh, Calvin Ridley or Travis Hunter?
Travis Hunter.
Okay. So ADP has Rome and Shakir but behind Travis. Rome's at the 705.
The Shakir one,
Shakir's
I could probably flip on that. But it's just, you're getting 5 catches, 50 yards out of Khalil Shakir every single week.
Yep.
And then maybe he has a couple more and a touchdown sprinkled in there too.
Right.
So that's kind of why I led that way.
So there you go. All right, moving into I have this segment called Trade Interest for news, because we have a couple of people who are being talked about in some trade talks, but I'm going to talk about the big important one first. This was from Fox's Jordan Schultz. He reported that multiple teams have expressed interest in Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts. Currently, nothing is imminent, but it would take at least a day 2 pick for the Falcons to consider trading Kyle Pitts Pitts is 24 and is set to earn a guarantee salary of $10.8 million under his 2025 fifth-year option is set to become an unrestricted free agent in 2026. The Falcons would clear the entire $10.8 million salary if they trade him, but their preference is to keep him. So last year, Pitts had 47 catches for 602 yards and 4 touchdowns. What do you think here, Will? Do we think that this is all smoke and mirrors, or do we think that Kyle Pitts is on the move?
I'm going to say
do we want him on the move?
Well, that's where I was going to go. So they want a day 2 pick. Am I crazy to sit here and say that that's too much for Kyle Pitts? Because, I mean, I'm pulling up his
I'm going to say no.
His stats from, his whole season. So his rookie year comes out, lights the world on fire, 1,000-yard season. Great.
Yep.
We're like, okay, because the prospect of Kyle Pitts out of Florida was like, this dude is going to terrorize the league for years.
He was the generational tight end before Brock Bowers was
exactly.
the generational tight end.
So he comes in 1,000 yards. We're like, okay, this makes sense. But he only had that 1 touchdown, so it wasn't, a great fantasy year. But still, this is what you wanted to see year 1. Then he goes 356 yards. Sure, he only played 10 games. I'll cut him some slack there. Then the next 2 years he plays full season. He goes 667 yards, 602 yards. Where are we seeing day 2 pick value here? It's not like he's fresh off the draft board and we're still sitting here drooling over his Florida tape.
No, I think the day 2 value. I still agree with the day 2 value of him
because of
second or third
prospect that
because
he is.
of the prospect that he is. I truly believe that Kyle Pitts has been playing hurt at least 2 years ago and last year. The year where he played 10 games, I think he was definitely playing hurt, was still not 100% healthy these last 2 years. And you also have to think that, his sophomore year and his third year, he was playing in an Arthur Smith offense that did not utilize his skill set properly.
I'll give you that.
And I don't even think Arthur Smith wanted to use him. They were more content using Jonnu Smith because he fit their system a lot better than Kyle Pitts, and they were just willing to just let him sit on the sideline or not even put him in. You saw at least this year with Raheem Morris.
Yep.
And I think Zach Johnson is the offensive coordinator, which is a Los Angeles Rams kind of style where there's 3 wide receivers. It's a lot of passing. Sure, I think he struggled a little bit with, Kirk Cousins and the different changes in quarterbacks, but I still think Kyle Pitts is a great, tight end prospect. I think I would be willing, if I were a team that I would be willing to utilize his skill set, I would be willing to invest a day 2 pick on him. They already invested in a tight end, but if someone like the Rams or, the Denver Broncos, teams that utilize tight ends efficiently, I think would be phenomenal. Or another one, and this one could be interesting if they decide to kind of go that route.
Wait, can I guess before you say it?
Wait.
New England?
No.
Oh.
Could you imagine Kyle Pitts playing in Los Angeles with Justin Herbert?
Oh, my God.
No,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
It would
That's
be
why
crazy.
I hate it.
It'd be crazy. You know what I mean? Because they already have Conklin and Disley to block. You don't need him to block.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just put him in line in the slot and let him go to work. And they need another, they have Trey Harris now, but I think they still need a third option to rely on and spread the ball around. I think that would be a great pick. And if I'm the Chargers, I would invest a 3rd round pick, for this guy. Why not? What is there to lose?
Yeah, no, I hear it. I hear that argument. And yeah, there's definitely situations where if he was there, my mindset would be a lot different. But listen, I hear the what he is as a prospect argument. He still is only 24. I think he's going to turn 25 this season. So the age is on your side as well. So listen, depending on the team that gives up that day 2 pick, you would have to come back to me and let me know. Because if the Chargers give up a 3rd round pick, then yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
If it's I think New England would be another good spot, and I think they have the resources to do so.
Sure.
And he would easily jump up that depth chart in terms of
beat out essentially Hunter Henry. That was it.
Exactly. Even just he would jump up in front of those other wide receivers that they have, just in terms of target share, in my opinion. But there's other teams that I just don't think it would make sense. Like I don't think he would make sense with the Jets. I don't think he would make sense with
other teams that probably have an established like tight end, like
exactly like
Buffalo. I don't think
Buffalo
it would work.
wouldn't make sense.
You know where it could also work? It wouldn't work now because they invested in this guy. But Cincinnati, I know they just paid Gesicki, but like that could be crazy too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Tune in and stay put. Maybe Kyle Pitts is on the move.
I was gonna say I think he's staying.
I think he stays.
Yeah.
I think he stays. He plays out the rest of the deal, and then he probably tests the waters in free agency.
Exactly, because that's the other thing is like teams who are going to give up that day 2 pick, with that pick they would be getting a player where they're getting a rookie contract rather than now they're getting Pitts and now they got to pay him.
Right. Exactly. So we'll see. And then the second one, it's actually kind of ironic. We talked about Pitts and then brought up this player, but Jonnu Smith is drawing interest specifically to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, Arthur Smith wants him really bad.
Because Arthur Smith
keep your paws off,
him.
dude. Keep your paws off. You're gonna ruin it.
I don't like this one.
I hate it
because honestly, I kind of like Pat Freiermuth. I'm a Pat Freiermuth fan.
There's so many things it kills.
Like why would you just throw a whole wrench in that? And that's what Arthur Smith does for fantasy.
He certainly does.
He just throws a wrench in your plans.
He's the devil. Yeah, so Jonnu Smith coming off a tight end 4-year. Yeah, let's go put him with Arthur Smith and no quarterback. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think do you see Jonnu Smith? Listen, foreshadowing. We're talking tight ends today. He didn't make our top 12 rankings.
No,
neither you nor me.
Nope.
So
even though the ride last year was great, it was so much fun.
So what are your expectations for Jonnu this year?
If he's a Dolphin, he's on my radar. If he's a Steeler, I'm just forgetting he even exists. I'm gonna be straight up.
I get that.
That's about as real as I can be about it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think even the whole like tight end 4 season from Miami was such a fluke. You know what I mean? When it happened, because you also have to think it was like multiple quarterbacks, so it was a lot of dinking and dunking. Tyreek was played hurt all year. Waddle was a walking like hospital. You know what I mean? Like that guy was hurt all the time, and he was the only healthy guy in the offense. So do those things repeat to where Jonnu? Like if those things are able to be repeated, yes, Jonnu's going to have a great year. I'm not projecting that though.
I now understand the Arthur Smith connection. I didn't realize he was in Tennessee when Jonnu Smith was there. So that makes a little bit more sense.
Yep.
But still, like every report I see where it's like talking about this trade, it always finishes with Arthur Smith really wants him. It's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. So
please be a Dolphin.
Yeah. Hopefully he stays a Dolphin, but we'll have to see. But all right, we're moving into our last way too early ranking today, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking tight ends. We've discussed how, tight ends are essentially useless unless you have like the top third of, tight ends.
Pretty much.
So hopefully, you're tuning in, you're taking tabs and, making sure that you're planning ahead in your fantasy drafts to essentially get these guys. But just like all the other ones, I have my own personal rankings. Wu has his own personal rankings. They are completely fluid. Things are subject to change. But this is just our kind of quick exercise going through all the tight end prospects for this year on who we think is going to be good, who may struggle, and things like that. So we're gonna kick it off with our number one, but it's actually not one player; it's two.
So do we want to do? You take your number one, I take my number one.
That's exactly how I wanted to do it. So, Wu, you give me the case why this player is your number one tight end.
Yeah. So, I'm sitting there making my list, and I'm like, hey, Brock Bowers, that's probably a lock. It just makes the most sense. And then I think back to our tight end year in review episode, and we're talking about a certain tight end out in Arizona, Trey McBride, and we're sitting here thinking like, wow, what an incredible season. He coming off a tight end 2 year, and then we look at his touchdown numbers. He only had 2.
One of them was a fumble recovery.
Exactly. So you're gonna sit here and tell me this guy can't get 5+ touchdowns and he's not gonna flirt with that number one tight end year? Sure. Love Brock Bowers. This is not a diss on Brock Bowers, but Trey McBride has probably been the unluckiest person when it comes to scoring touchdowns because he gets the ball religiously. He's coming off 147 targets and 111 receptions for damn near 1,200 yards. You're gonna tell me he's not gonna fumble or stumble into the end zone just a couple more times? Like that, honestly, I'm gonna be honest. That is my argument here. Is like there's no way he can he's only the most touchdowns he scored in a season is 3. He has a year with one, and then last year he has two. And like you said, one of them was a fumble recovery.
Right.
So it wasn't even intentional. The luck for McBride has to start coming. There's just no way. It doesn't make sense in my mind that he's going to have under 5 touchdowns this year.
No. Listen, this is all music to my ears because I love Trey McBride. I took the bet on Trey McBride last year's offseason, and it paid out dividends for me. And now I have, essentially the number 2 dynasty tight end. I think he's absolute stud athlete at the tight end position. He's a home run. He's a home run guy. He's like athletic. He's reliable. He's all of those things. And the only problem with him really was touchdowns. You know what I mean? And we've sat here and told you touchdowns are not a sticky stat. So you can't say that, Trey McBride will never score touchdowns. There's going to be a touchdown progression for him. And it probably is this year, year 2 of having a full season with Kyler Murray and building that connection. Really, it's only, Marvin Harrison Jr. who's the other option there. But I'm going to be honest with you, Trey McBride's the number 1 option in that offense. We all want it to be Marv.
It'll come.
And maybe it does come, but right now it's Trey McBride, and he sees all the work.
So last year, they have a Week 11 bye. Listen to weeks 12 through 18. Let me read these off for you. He goes 12 for 133 in Week 12. Week 13, he goes 12 for 96. Week 14, he goes 7 for 70. 9 for 87. Week 16, he goes 3 for 20. We can ignore that. Week 17, 12 for 123. Mm-hmm. Week 18, 7 for 65. Like, those numbers for a tight end are phenomenal. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And he did not score his 2 touchdowns until Week 17 and Week 18. Yep. There's no way that happens again. There's no way.
I love it, but now let me give you the case for my number 1 tight end.
Let me hear it.
You have a rookie tight end, so we're already behind the 8 ball here. We have a rookie tight end that has multiple different quarterbacks who aren't even good. We're talking Aiden O'Connell. We're talking Gardner Minshew. And this man he plays a full 17 games. He sets rookie records and overall tight end records for targets and receptions. He beats Zach Ertz's record, and for yards. He had 1194. So, like, all these things that we're talking about with Trey McBride. And again, I love Trey McBride, but Brock Bowers does it better. You know what I mean? He had 153 targets. Which is more than McBride. He had 112 receptions. He had more yards. He had more touchdowns. And the only problem that we've ever said about McBride all of last year was he had terrible quarterback play. Well, now he gets Geno Smith, who I think is a leaps and bounds upgrade from Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. So you're telling me that Brock Bowers did all of this with those guys, and now he gets a solidified quarterback that, potentially has eyes for him. And I know that, they added Jack Betch in the draft, and Jacoby Myers is there, but the offense runs through him. Sure. Like, and we can say that, Genty's going to get the ball and get a lot of touches. I don't care in that sense. Whenever the Geno drops back to take a pass, it's going to be to Brock Bowers as his first read. And if you got 153 targets with, mediocre quarterbacks, and I can only imagine how many targets he's going to get with Geno Smith. So that is my case as to why Brock Bowers, I think, is the number 1 tight end of fantasy.
I hear all of that. I think you're 100% right, where Geno Smith is by far the best quarterback he's going to have, compared to last year. Like you said, when Geno Smith drops back, where his eyes are going. Brock Bowers is the one and only read.
Yep.
And I'm also not scared of the Genty touches or any of the other pass catchers on that offense. Just back to my argument though. So like last year in PPR, Brock Bowers had 263 fantasy points. Trey McBride was second with 250. Brock Bowers had 5 touchdowns. We know that McBride had 2. If we add 3 touchdowns, we don't even have to add the 3 points for receptions that McBride would get for those touchdowns. Sure. We just add the touchdowns. 3 times 6 is 18. That would put McBride above Bowers last year. Another thing, if we're going on a points per game basis, it looks like they both Trey McBride played 16 games. Bowers plays 17. Bowers was 12.2 fantasy points per game. McBride was 12.1. I think it's a lot closer than people
think
think.
and
McBride isn't scoring.
And in our Bonnet League, because I have it filtered as that, McBride actually beats Bowers in points per game. He's 15.6. Bowers is 15.5.
Yeah.
So it's razor thin.
Yeah.
Razor
it's
thin.
like you
can't go
make your
wrong.
pick. Exactly. Like either way, you're going to be really happy with these guys.
Right.
It's just a matter of,
And
it doesn't matter because they're going to be neck and neck at the top.
And like now that we're kind of talking about how razor thin it is, you're probably innately going Trey McBride because
Where he gets drafted.
At least McBride is, you could probably grab him in the second round, where Bowers I think is going to be an absolute first round pick no matter what league you have him in. I'm trying to find
It's a massive
his
positional
ADP
advantage
right now. Give me 30 seconds. I'll find his ADP and tell you what it is.
Yeah, I mean for Bowers in redraft though, if you're in a league where it's not tight end premium, I don't know if I'm taking him in the first.
So right now, PPR, Bowers is going at the 201 and McBride's going at the 211. So
Yeah, I like the value
so
there.
it's kind of tough. So I mean, unless you were someone who picked at the very beginning of the first round, like at the 102, and then going back, but like if you're picking in the 102, you're not going to take Bowers that early. Right. You know what I mean? So again, razor thin, but I think I love both players.
Yeah.
And it's just at that point, it's a preference on who you want.
I think the two major arguments for McBride is the touchdown or unluckiness is nuts, and there's no way that sticks.
And that doesn't stick, yeah.
And the Bowers piece is he did all of what he did last year with, absolute nobodies at quarterback, and now he's got Geno Smith.
Right.
I think those are the two major arguments.
So good debate. I like that, Wu. I respect your take on that one. But we're gonna move into our number 3 consensus. This one we have no debate on.
Nope.
It's George Kittle, San Francisco tight end. George Kittle had a phenomenal year last year, and I think he did it due to the absences of, assured targets like CMC, Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall kind of came on strong the last 3 games of the year, but the majority of the year it was the George Kittle show, and I think he is easily the number 3 guy after these two. I think it's Bowers and McBride is your 1A, 1B, however you want to shake it out. But then after that, Kittle is the next guy up, and you look at his game logs. As I look, he had only 2 games outside of injury. He only had 2 terrible games, and it was week 13 against Buffalo, which he played 100% of snaps. I don't know how he had that bad of a game. And then week 18 against Arizona, where he only played 29% of the snaps. But every single other week, he was a top. He was a tight end 1. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, George Kittle is phenomenal, and he will continue to be phenomenal in 2025.
Yeah, there's nothing I can sit here and say about George Kittle that we haven't heard already. The guy's a freak. Everything he does is to go out and win the game. He's always going to be a major part of this offense until he can no longer perform, and I don't think he's at that point yet, even though he is 31, going to be 32.
Yeah.
But he's such a psycho, man. I don't think the age is going to really affect him that much.
I think the end is starting to come for him, probably. I think you're probably getting 1 to 2 more elite years, but, if we're talking this year in redraft, like, you should have no worries.
No.
The only worry that I've always had with George Kittle is, he plays so tough that sometimes he gets hurt and isn't able to play games. Like, obviously, he played 15 games last year, but as long as he's playing, and looking back at his logs, as long as he's playing, 14 to 15 games, he's at least the tight end 4 or 5, which is a great bet. Because if I'm drafting a guy and I know as long as he plays at least 14 to 15 games, he's going to be a top 5 tight end for me. Yeah. You take that bet.
Yeah. And to build off how physical he is point, that can lead to injury, but it also, because he's so physical, he's such an impactful blocker that can kind of work him out of a game sometimes, because they rely on him so heavy to be a good blocker, and for good reason. But that just limits his opportunities.
Right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just one. I think George Kittle goes around so far in PPR at the 406. So it looks like Bowers and
I would consider that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that all kind of depends on preference too, of how you draft. I'm somebody who I never take tight end until
Same.
like towards like the very end.
Yep.
Unless it's like going for an elite guy, and even then I'm kind of skeptical because I've had some years where you invested. Like one year I remember Mark Andrews was the tight end one, and I invested him early and it burned me. So
Yeah.
still have scars from that, but listen, I can appreciate George Kittle as the player.
Yeah, I feel the Mark Andrews pain. I think it was 2 years ago. I took him pretty early, and I traded him before the season started.
Yes. So we'll see. All right, number 4 on our list is Sam Laporta from the Detroit Lions. Consensus number 4. We both agree on this one. I'm really hoping this is the bounce back year for Sam Laporta. Not to say that he had a terrible year, but
he just got off to a really slow start. It was tough to dig himself out of it.
And 2 years ago, he was the tight end one as a rookie, and it was kind of blew everyone away. And we thought, this is going to be a perennial top 3 guy every time. And he struggled last year. You look at the game logs. The first 4 weeks of the year, he was the tight end 8, but then the tight end 32, 21, 14. They have the bye week, and he comes back, and you start to see a lot of green in his game logs, like tight end 6, tight end 9, tight end 3, tight end 8, 11, 1, 5, 6, like to end the year. So it really started to kind of get back to form. But I think those, if I remember correctly, that week 13 to 17 stretch, that was around the time where Montgomery had gotten hurt, and it was kind of one less option in the passing game for Laporta to kind of fight with, and that's where he started to really shine. But now who knows? There's a new offensive coordinator. We don't know the tendencies, the play style, or anything like that. But I think the thing that is still concrete is that Amon-Ra St. Brown is the number 1 target in this, and Jameson Williams probably the number 2 in the passing game, and then Laporta sits at the 3. So. What are your thoughts on Sam Laporta, Will?
Yeah, I get the question marks with the Ben Johnson departs. Jameson Williams took a step up towards the end of last year. We saw how dominant their running game can be, but even with just Jahmyr Gibbs, not even with David Montgomery towards the end of the year. So I get all those question marks. There's a lot of mouths to feed. But if there's ever a situation to kind of be in limbo, why would you not want to be on Detroit's offense? Because they're going to put up points, and He is one of the better tight ends in this league talent-wise. Obviously, he went tight end 1 his rookie year, and that's not by accident. So if you're going to be in limbo and have some question marks around you might as well do it when you're in Detroit, where you're going to put up close to 30 points a game. The offense is going to be ultra aggressive, and you can get steady quarterback play on a week-to-week basis no matter what with Jared Goff.
Right. And who knows, with another year Montgomery being a year older, and maybe Gibbs starts to kind of step into that running back role with more touches, and he decreases a little bit in the passing game. Maybe that's Laporta's opportunity to kind of step into the fray and say, hey, listen, I'm a reliable option, and target me. And injury changes everything too. Like Amon-Ra can get hurt. Jameson Williams could get hurt, and then he just moves up organically in the pecking order.
Yeah, and Jameson Williams, he's a fun, explosive player, big play guy, and yeah, you're definitely, I would say you're right when it comes to he's probably going to be that second option, but if there's ever a second option that he's going to be able to jump, I don't know how many people can sit here and say they're completely sold on Jameson Williams. I think there's still a lot of question marks around him too.
I agree.
So that also plays into this as well. I would say Laporta is still in a great spot, even though I have him at 4, which is no knock on him. But again, these tight end rankings towards the top, it gets really tight. I did have the conversation in my head about putting him above George Kittle because, again, it's an ultra aggressive offense. They're going to score a lot of points. But yeah, I think being on an ultra aggressive offense like Detroit, they're going to score a lot of points, and their number 2 option being Jameson Williams. Again, I'm not sitting here hating on Jameson Williams, but there's still a lot of question marks around him, and we've seen what Sam Laporta can do. And again, you're going to get that steady QB play to Jared Goff every single week.
The one thing I was wondering, I was checking at as you were talking, was I know that this was if they did or did not pick up the his 5th-year option in Jameson Williams, but they actually did. So he's got at least a couple more seasons left. But it would have been interesting if they didn't pick up his option, and he essentially played out like his last year there. Then that would kind of give you some more clarity for Sam Laporta, but still a little bit cloudy. So we'll have to see. Number 5 on our tight end consensus rankings, we have T.J. Hawkinson.
My guy.
Yeah, he's your guy. You just picked him up in the dynasty league.
Never had the pleasure.
Yeah, he. I like T.J. Hawkinson. I think last year was, in my opinion, a rougher year for him. He's coming off the ACL injury. They slowly had to kind of work him back into the fray, but I believe, if I'm looking at his game log, they didn't slowly work him back in. Like. No. Week 9 and week 6 and week 10, he was 46, 45, and 48%. But then after that, he just slowly started to climb. He was in the 60s, and eventually by week 18, he was almost 80% of the snaps playing. So I think an off season for him to rest, recover, and get that knee stronger. I think it's going to be he's going to be very reliable in fantasy drafts, especially with J.J. McCarthy being the quarterback. Again, we don't know what to expect out of J.J. McCarthy, and a lot of rookie first-year quarterbacks tend to kind of rely on their tight ends as safety valves. So I think Hawkinson could be someone who sees a lot of dump offs for PPR, which is huge for a tight end, because if you can get someone who's a reliable person who's going to get 4, 5, 6 catches a game, that's 4, 5, 6 points off the rip that you already have going for you.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because I know we had this conversation on the last episode talking about Justin Jefferson and the J.J. McCarthy question marks that I have, which still remain true. I'm not backing down from this. So now I'm going to sit here and say I have T.J. Hawkinson at 5.
Slowly, I'm gonna win you over on the J.J. side.
I don't know. I gotta see it. But no, back to the point. Like, sure, listen, I have Justin Jefferson outside the top 5, but now I have T.J. Hawkinson inside the top 5. First, it's a lot easier to get into the top 5 for tight ends. So
absolutely.
Let me defend myself there.
No, I got you back.
But
on
second,
that one.
like the point you just made, when it comes to young quarterbacks, tight ends can be that safety valve where when things start to speed up for the quarterback, all they got to do is look 5-10 yards down the field and bang. That's my safety net right there. And I think Hawkinson can be that guy. We've seen him have some really good fantasy years. He's been the tight end 4 twice. And he was a tight end 2 back in 2022. That was with Kirk Cousins. So a lot more established quarterback that was throwing him the ball. But again, if people are buying in on J.J. McCarthy, maybe I'll buy in a little bit, just for my guy Hawkinson. But like you said, it really boils back to the point of young quarterback. Game's going to be really quick for him. We still haven't seen him play an NFL snap yet, J.J. McCarthy. So, yeah, the game's going to speed up quick for him. He's getting thrown into the fire. I think they have already said he's going to be the starter. I don't think it's really a question of whether or not he's going to start like he is the guy.
No, he's the guy, yeah.
Exactly. So that game's going to speed up quick for him. He's going to need to have his easy throws to get his mentals going, build that confidence, and I think Hawkinson's the perfect guy for him.
I didn't realize that T.J. Hawkinson's only 28 years old. Like, that kind of blew my mind just looking at that right now.
Yeah.
I thought for sure he was 30 plus.
I mean, he looks like he's 40.
Yeah, he does. Do you see that profile?
Yeah, it looks like he's been in the woods for the last 20 years.
But he's only 20. He's 27.9 years old right now. So like depending on how the recovery from the knee happens, if he can come back to full strength, like he's got multiple years left. You know what I mean? Like he could be someone who surprises us, and then next year we're talking him as in like the top 3 options of tight ends. Who knows? And I just want a quick ADP check.
I was just looking at that, so because I want to compare it back to George Kittle at the 405.
He's the 504,
and I'm seeing the 504. I think I like the value of Hawkinson more in the 5th round than George Kittle.
I think I'm on board with you too. We might be Hawkinson guys. It's actually criminal that Sam Laporta's 506, but hey.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, yeah. If Sam Laporta's 506, I want Sam Laporta, but
we'll have to see. Moving into our tight end 6, is Travis Kelce. Is this a typo? Travis Kelce at number 6?
I can't believe I have him this high, to be honest. I moved him up a couple spots.
Did you?
I had him at 7.
I think the reign for the guy that his nickname is Zeus. I think it's over. I think he has now become a mortal man.
What's that song that they play? Taps.
Yes,
That would be appropriate right
I think
here.
this is his taps.
I'll
I
probably
think
have to throw that in.
he's going to. I don't know. I like it. Just felt as I'm going through the list and I'm putting players in. And I keep saying to myself, "Where's Travis Kelce? Where's Travis Kelce?" And there was at one point I was like, I have to slot him in because like he's probably fantasy wise in my generation the greatest tight end
it's not even
I've ever
close.
seen.
It's not even close.
It's insane. But I think he's hit the point. I don't. How old is Travis Kelce? Do you have that up right now, Will?
Yeah, he's 35. He's going to be 36 this year.
Yeah, so he's on the twilight end of his career. Do we think this is the last year that we have Travis Kelce?
Probably, man. Like he's gonna marry Taylor Swift. He's gonna ride off into the sunset, and it's gonna be like his football career never happened.
And the crazy thing is, though, is that a mortal man, 35-year-old Travis Kelce, I would rather take than more than half of these other tight ends.
Yeah,
I would much rather like grind it out with Travis Kelce, who's gonna dink and duck his way to like 4 for 30 every week, than flirt with any of these other options. You know what I mean? But what are your thoughts on Travis Kelce here at number 6?
I'm just looking at his career stats here. From 2016 through 2020, so that's 5 seasons for the math people at home. He was a tight end 1.
Yeah,
and
straight.
Then in 2021, he's like, oh, man, I had a bad year. Tight end 2. 2022, I'm back, I'm 1. And then 23, 24, he goes 3 and 6. So it's just an incredible run. You got to tip your cap to him. But, yeah, the age is there. Kansas City has some young pieces there with Worthy and Rice, kind of bringing in that new generation of pass catchers for Mahomes. I think his biggest plus here is that he plays with Mahomes. Like, right. Mahomes can probably make him look like he's still 25.
Exactly.
So I think that's something that has to play in here. Like I said, I had to move him up a couple spots because I was like, there's no way I can have him this low on my list. It just felt disrespectful.
It does. But we'll kind of see. So moving in from someone who's in the twilight of his career to someone who is just starting out. Number 7 on our list, Colston Loveland, tight end for.
You had him where?
Hold on, I got him at 12. Listen, I'm going to be honest here. This. I'm going to sit here and defend myself.
Okay.
Love Colston Loveland, the prospect. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. He's got. We've raved about him through the entire draft process. And he had amazing draft capital. He was the first tight end off the board, 10th overall. Like it should be all systems go for this guy. The thing that holds me back it's the same thing with Sam Laporta, where he has to fight for like just the minute amount of targets. Like not to already to start. DJ Moore's the number 1 option there. Now we have Rome Odunze, who we both like and we think is going to take a step forward. So that, again, means more targets. You have Luther Burden, who potentially takes over that slot role that Keenan Allen left over. He's going to grab some targets. And then not to mention that Cole Kmet used to be the starting tight end there. He's got to beat him out first for targets. Like it's so, like I think the future is super bright for Colston Loveland, but I think in this first year, there are so many other people, other targets he has to beat out or compete with that I don't know if that's gonna be worth it fantasy wise. Like, I'm just going back to my ranking sheet that I was doing, and with the target breakdown, I think I still had Colston Loveland at a 15% target share. Or sorry, 11% target share, which means he was on average based on, how many times Caleb's going to throw the ball. He's only getting 4 targets a game. You know what I mean? Like 4 targets is good, but it's like, is that enough to sustain you for fantasy over the course of the year? That's my only holdup with Colston Loveland. Love the guy, love the talent, but I don't know. Maybe you can sell me on why I shouldn't be so down on him.
Well, yeah, I have to sell you on him because I have him at 5. And when I sat down to make my list, of course, the thought crossed my mind of, how high can I put a rookie tight end, because we've seen the run that they've been on over the last couple seasons with Laporta and Bowers finishing as the number 1 overall. So there was a conversation in my head, like, do I put him at 1? Like, am I going to be that guy that, kind of follows this trend that's been happening?
Sure.
Then I realized I was insane, with McBride and Bowers. So I landed with him at 5, just behind Laporta and Kittle, to round out the top 5 there. Listen, it's part of the reason me having him at 5 is because I knew I needed to have a rookie tight end in the top 5 just based off previous history.
Okay.
And I landed with Loveland instead of Warren. A, the draft capital, he's the first one off the board. B, just the whole positive vibes that we've seen behind Chicago. I mean, we've been talking about it forever now. Like, I'm not going to sit here and repeat myself. And I forget, we did talk about this. I forget if I brought it up or you brought it up. I'm pretty sure you did. But this is Ben Johnson's Sam Laporta.
Yep.
Like, there's a reason why they were sitting there at 10. They had so many directions they could have went, and they sat there and said, we want Loveland. And, with all the directions, whether it be different kind of positions, then to go, okay, we want a tight end, and then they take, the guy that people thought was going to go later in the first round, and they skip the generational talent in Tyler Warren, that people have been talking about. So I think the faith to sit there at 10 with this new regime and that be your first draft pick as that new regime and say, we want this guy, I think that should bring a lot of confidence as to what they see in him, what they think they can utilize him with, because they're not going to sit there at 10 and take him and then be like, okay, yeah, he's on the back burner for now. Sure, maybe earlier in the season it might take him some time, to work himself into that offense, but I think it would be crazy for Chicago to take him at 10 and we wouldn't see, him being a focal point of this offense. I think that would just, if the Bears want to move forward as an organization, they cannot take him at 10 and, not have him be a part of this offense. Why would you make your first draft pick, as this new regime, and have him not be relevant? So I think he has to be fantasy relevant. I just think the pick would make no sense. Why would they set themselves back and go back to that kind of old culture of Chicago dumpster fire when you're trying to move forward as a team?
Right.
And then also, we talked about it with T.J. Hawkinson, and J.J. McCarthy being a young quarterback, that being that nice safety net for him. I think that plays here for Caleb Williams.
Sure.
And to the Cole Kmet piece, yeah, I mean, he's the established guy, but you just take Loveland at 10. Kmet's going to be your hand in the dirt guy. Loveland's going to be out there like another receiver. I don't think he's really going to have to block much. So those are my arguments there.
I hear you and I respect that. I guess, but my question for you is, if he becomes fantasy relevant, who takes the step? Someone has to take a step back.
I think it's more likely that he's fantasy relevant than Luther Burden. And then to me, it becomes a conversation between Odunze and DJ Moore. And, I have been saying that I'm in on Rome Odunze, especially because I have him on one of my teams, or two of my teams now. So, I'm in on the talent. But I think, if I had to sit here and say, I think it's going to be pretty inconsistent. I think there's a chance that's pretty inconsistent on a week-to-week basis between DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. I think they kind of feed the hot hand there because they both get peppered with targets. Obviously, DJ Moore got, the higher quality ones last year. And I expected Odunze to make a jump, but I think Loveland definitely has a better chance to be fantasy relevant than Luther Burden. I think also their lack of a run game. I think there's question marks behind DeAndre Swift. I think that adds to it as well.
But I agree with that. With the lack of the run game, but I think that also, if we're then looking at Caleb Williams throwing the ball 30 times a game, I think Chicago as a team isn't going to be successful because they're going to turn themselves into a one-dimensional offense. But we'll kind of have to see. So I had, and maybe you tell, I'm assuming the answer is going to be higher, but I have Colson Loveland statted out for 62 targets. You think that's too low, or you think that's appropriately ranked?
It's a good number for now.
Yeah.
I think he could be, I'll give you 65 to 75. That's my range for him.
Okay. Well, 60, I was going to say, I mean, depending on how also those targets bounce, but as of right now, and, I projections can always change. I have him statted out for 62 receptions, 62 targets, 43 receptions for 551 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's just, it's tough, because then, I look at, I have Burden statted out for 70 targets, Rome for 103, DJ Moore for 140, and, obviously some running backs get some, dump off targets here and there. It's just, I don't know if there's enough targets to go around to get him to keep him relevant, but, we'll have, and that's also with me having Caleb Williams statted out for throwing the ball 570 times and having 4,300 passing yards. So it's tough. I hear what you're saying, you know what I mean, and he's a phenomenal talent, but I think things need to kind of clear out before, we start putting him in the top 5.
I get that.
I
get that.
But listen, these are all good. If this tells me anything,
Chicago's in a great spot.
Chicago's in a great spot. If you have a chance to take Caleb Williams, like, he has dudes to throw to everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I might even move Caleb Williams up in my personal rankings just by even talking about having this exercise. So, moving into our tight end number 8, Mark Andrews from the Baltimore Ravens. We've talked about him in our year in review series. The first 4 games were
Where's Waldo?
Yeah, it was Where's Waldo. Everybody was hitting the panic button on Mark Andrews, but everything was fine. Finishes the tight end 6, or sorry, maybe the tight end 5. But now, another year older, 29.7 years old. I had just talked about, when we were going over our teams for the Dynasty League. I think Mark Andrews is someone who is going to continue to take a step back in this Baltimore offense, and it's hard to see where the value is for him. So, we talked about this again, top of the show, about, tight ends, and we've talked about how it's so easy to talk about stud value, and opportunities. Now that we're getting into the 6-7 range, like, this is where things start to get murky.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts, Will, on Mark Andrews?
Yeah, so we have him both at 8, and to be honest, I had him a little bit lower than that. And again, like, same thing with Travis Kelce, the run that we've seen them be on over the last few years and throughout their career. Like, it just felt disrespectful. And there's another name here that we'll get to. I think so. Yeah, we'll get to them in a couple picks here. But I had him ahead of Mark Andrews at one point. I ended up switching them around just because I think the ceiling's capped. Like, like, how much more are we going to be able to get from Mark Andrews? Like you said, I agree that year after year, he's going to be taking that step back in this offense. A name that we mentioned earlier, Zay Flowers. He should be a guy that should start creeping into that offense, dominating more targets. Derrick Henry is going to be the dominant runner for the next couple of years, however much time he has left. There's really no ceiling and excitement for Mark Andrews for me anymore.
Yeah, and even more as I'm looking at my personal rankings, like, I have Mark Andrews at 8. Like, I'm even more willing to, like, slide him down, and I don't know.
I think by the end of this episode, I probably will.
Right. I just think it's as I'm looking, and we're probably going to talk about more players. Like, you can almost make the upside case for them more so than Mark Andrews, but got to show respect where respect is due. He did finish as the tight end 1 about 2 years ago.
I'll tell you right now, he was a tight end in 2021.
2021, he was the tight end 1. So I still show respect for that man. But moving in, did you have another thought?
Well, I don't know if you saw the face I just made. He scored 11 touchdowns last year. No wonder why he was the tight end 6.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that's the other thing too. Actually, that's a good thing that you brought it up. He scored 11 touchdowns, and let's say that 4 or 5 of them don't bounce his way. This year,
I probably wouldn't even have him on the list.
Yeah, he doesn't even make the list with 6 touchdowns. So
yeah, no, I'm definitely changing my ranking.
So he did it off the back of double-digit touchdowns. Which, I mean, do we expect him to do that again? Probably not. Nah. So yeah, he might move down again. But here to talk about our number 9 tight end, Mr. Dalton Kincaid, wide receiver from Buffalo. Dalton Kincaid, I think we highlighted him in our Dynasty 101 tips about tight end breakouts. I still believe in Dalton Kincaid, the prospect. I know we did an FTR video about bounce back players. I think Dalton Kincaid is someone who definitely can bounce back. Personally, I had him in as my tight end 7. But do you believe in the bounce back, or I'm sorry, the breakout eventually of Dalton Kincaid?
I do, because like you said, we did just do that video, and Dalton Kincaid was one of our bounce back candidates. I think there's a lot of positive data behind him. We talk about the breakout ranges for different positions, and Specifically for tight ends, 68% of them break out between ages 23 and 25. So he falls into that category. He's on a high-powered offense with a franchise quarterback in Josh Allen. The team's going to be more than competitive every single year. He's yet to have 700 yards on a season. So I think there's a lot of positive numbers that back up his case. I have him at 12, and like I just said, with after talking about Mark Andrews, the back half of my ranks are definitely going to change. So I do anticipate him sliding up a couple spots here. Once I sit back and think about that, it's just for whatever reason, like Buffalo, over the last couple of seasons, they've been number one seeds in the playoffs. They win their division, and they have 11 plus wins pretty much every single year. And they don't do it on the back of a dominant one target. Like, it's kind of just a collection of guys out there catching the ball with Josh Allen. And then they have James Cook and Josh Allen running all over the field and kind of just beat you down. The really good argument here for Kincaid is that they do not have a dominant number one target.
And there's opportunity for him to step in.
Absolutely. There's absolutely opportunity for him to step in. It's just a matter of, is that what they want their game plan to be? Is Kincaid someone who can take on a larger role and they can still continue to have these winning seasons? Because at the end of the day, the Bills are trying to win games. They don't care about our fantasy teams.
Right.
So that is something you have to think about. Is like, if the Bills, you don't break you don't fix what isn't broken. So, if that means that Kincaid's going to be, a second, third option, and they can kind of just have a collection of guys out there without a dominant one, then that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah. We'll have to see. So I was trying to find some of the stats that we were talking about in terms of tight end breakouts, but I think it was 63% of tight ends break out in years 2 and 3, and I think about 71% of tight ends break out around age 24, which I believe Dalton Kincaid is 24.8 years old or something. So he's in his 24s. So all the stats point to potentially it working out for him. So this year, if you're willing to bet on somebody who is going to cost you a 10th round pick in fantasy,
it's a shot I'm willing to take.
Why not take the shot on Dalton Kincaid? So he may be someone that I have on every single team, because I like to take tight ends late, and
yeah, 10th round is where those radars start to turn on for me. Like, right. Okay, let's start taking a tight end here.
I'll easily take Dalton Kincaid in the 10th round
for sure,
but we'll have to see. All right, our tight end 10, Mr. Evan Ingram for the Denver Broncos, not the Jacksonville Jaguars.
This is the name I will have jumping Mark Andrews.
Yeah. He's a sneaky candidate to actually have a phenomenal season, because I think people forget that 2 years ago he was the tight end 2, right?
I think he has top 5 potential.
Oh, easily has top 5 potential.
And I would even sit here and say he has top 3 potential.
Can we? I mean, let's just start right there. He's in a system in Denver with Sean Payton, and the last time Sean Payton had a phenomenal tight end, he went by the name of Jimmy Graham, I believe.
That's right.
Who was good. The number 1 tight end for multiple years. And now I get Evan Ingram is not Jimmy Graham.
Right.
However, he's not the focal point, of an offense. Like when he was in Jacksonville, that tight end 2 season, he was the number 1 guy. Everyone was, game planning for him, scheming for him. Well, now you have kind of a more dynamic offense in Denver, where they just invested in a second round pick in RJ Harvey, who I think is actually going to have a decent year. You have Cortland Sutton, hopefully the coming along of Marvin Mims and things like that, and let's just throw Evan Ingram in that whole piece. Like, I think he's someone who sneakily could have a phenomenal year.
Yeah, the Evan Ingram's biggest flaws in his career are injuries and being a New York Giant. So when he plays, 15 games and he's not a New York Giant, he's the tight end 6. The tight end 2 his rookie year is the tight end 5. The talent's there. He is one of those faster, more athletic tight ends that can beat you downfield, make guys miss, with that, yards after catch ability. And he's had seasons where in that tight end 2 season, he's got 143 targets. His rookie year, he had 115 targets. Like, he can be a focal point of an offense. Denver's got Cortland Sutton. That's not necessarily someone I'm super terrified of when it comes to dominating targets. I think Evan Ingram can step in here, and again, for a young quarterback, be that safety net, but can also take the top off of defense.
Yeah, you sometimes like with fantasy football, it doesn't have to do with stats and things like that. You have to kind of look at the back end things. They like if a team is investing $16.5 million, they're not just spending $16.5 million for him to be a decoy.
Money talks.
Like he's going to get targets in this offense, and what was his ADP as well? He's probably someone. He's at the 8-10 right now. So I think people are seeing the move and understanding it, which is
gonna jump.
very sharp, and I think he's gonna jump because he's at the 8-10 where Mark Andrews is at the 709. I think I'd rather have Evan Ingram over Mark Andrews.
Oh yeah, yep.
Would you rather have Travis Kelce over him?
For the upside, I gotta go Ingram.
Okay, Kelsey's going at the 611. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, give me Ingram.
Like he could be a sneaky draft day value. Two more left. Number 11, we have another rookie on the list, Tyler Warren for the Indianapolis Colts. Another rookie here on the list, I think, is someone who now that I think about it, Woo, I think this is the rookie we should be talking about who's going to get into the top 5. Like,
you're nuts. You got to sell me now because that's crazy.
Hear me out. He has nobody, or not. No, I won't say
no,
nobody.
You're right. He has nobody to throw him the ball.
But we said the same thing about Brock Bowers. Had nobody throw him the ball, and the guy had 153 targets. I'm saying he's got essentially nobody to compete with for targets outside of, I don't know, Michael Pittman. I mean, are we really sold on Josh Downs here?
No,
you know what I mean?
Nope.
So,
Donnie Mitchell, don't care.
So right there, those are two. There's like it's comparable to Jacoby Myers and Jack Betch. I just said he Brock Bowers is able to do it with mediocre guys. Like Evan Ingram, Tyler Warren could do the same thing where, he gets those Richardson / Daniel Jones dump offs, and then he just lets the athleticism shine and then rips off, yards after the catch and things like that. Like he may be somebody that I might move him up my list. I'm telling you right now, I think he might move up my list.
Yeah, I mean, he probably will for me as well as the summer goes on. I want to see what OTAs look like. I want to see the Anthony Richardson progression, what kind of hype is around him. Because, yeah, you're right. Like, it does fall under the Brock Bowers model of, he had nobody to throw the ball to, and he still ripped off that insane year. And we sat here, for a good portion of the early half of this year talking about Tyler Warren. He's the generational talent coming into this draft. He might be the best player in the draft. He's a can't-miss prospect, and all of a sudden he starts falling. Which I don't know, should him falling like raise any concerns? Because he was supposed to be anywhere from 6 to 10, I would say, and then he goes to 14. Like, is that?
I don't think so. I think that
it's not like a crazy fall.
No, it wasn't a crazy fall, but I also think it was because those teams from 6 to 13 they didn't need a tight end. You know what I mean?
But like the Jets could have taken one. Chicago ended up taking one.
They could have. They could have, but I think they also addressed bigger needs. Like I don't think the Jets, yes, they need a tight end, but I think they needed to address the holes in the offensive line in order, because you got to build from the trenches out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you have, and I think other teams were either solidified or had bigger needs that affected their football team as a whole. But I still believe in the talent of Tyler Warren, even though I think I knew he was going to go to Indy, but I'm not worried because he's going to be there long term. I don't think Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones is going to be there long term, and I think we could be sitting in a completely different, similar. Maybe I'm not saying he's going to be the tight end one like Brock Bowers is or was, but maybe he plays his way into the tight end 6, tight end 5. They boot out Anthony Richardson and they boot out Daniel Jones, and then they bring in I don't know. We talked about how strong this rookie class is. I'm not obviously calling for Arch Manning, but say Arch Manning's the quarterback, and then we're talking Tyler Warren as probably a top 3 guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I'm very prepared to be wrong when it comes to the Tyler Warren take. I hate the situation. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I hate it so much. It's like I feel like he could have went to any other team, and my thought would I'd have different feelings about it. I just don't like the situation at all. So I'm going to sit here. I'm going to have him towards the back of my list. and I'm okay with being wrong. Like I really hope he goes out and proves me wrong, to be honest, because I was so high on him, throughout the draft process.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately ended up in Indy.
Yeah, I'm definitely moving him up. I just looked at my projection sheet. I have him for 75 receptions, 75 targets, 53 receptions, 670 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and that puts him at the tight end 6 so far. Haven't finished the other half of the team.
It's fluid.
But he might be moving up. He might be moving up. What's his ADP right now? 906. Yeah, that's too rich for my blood right now. Yeah, I'm still in that Kincaid range still in the 10th.
Yeah, there's a little more confidence.
But all right, to round out our top 12 consensus rankings, we have Kyle Pitts.
The floor is yours.
The floor is
yours because he's not on my list.
All right, let me prepare myself to give you the Kyle Pitts treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here and I'm going to tell you, Woo, I'm back in. I'm back in on the man known as Kyle Pitts. I think he is somebody who, back to my argument when we were talking about, in the news, I think he's someone who, has been playing hurt and hasn't been fully healthy. And, as I talk about it, I see, that during OTAs they're being extremely cautious with him because he has a foot injury.
Of course.
But I think all jokes aside, I think he's going to be 100% healthy come week 1. And I don't think outside of his rookie year, we have seen a true healthy Kyle Pitts because, obviously the year we had a healthy Kyle Pitts gave us 1,000 yards. And that was in a Arthur Smith offense that, I think it was a new toy and let's get him the ball. I think now in, this Zach Robinson offense where they work 3 wide all the time and they're spread out often, I think there's multiple opportunities for Kyle Pitts to get involved in this offense. We still have the question marks if we don't know what's going on with Michael Penix. Like, how many times are they going to really throw the ball, per game? But he's someone who, outside of Bijan Robinson and Drake London, like he can slot in as the third guy. You know what I mean? And if Atlanta starts to become this, high flying, high passing volume offense, like targets have to go to somebody, and why not it be Kyle Pitts? He's a freak of nature. We've already kind of talked about it. He had 4.4 speed. He's 6'6", 250. Like, it's all there. And really, and we're talking about the tight end 12 here, where, the tight end 12 last year gave you 9 points a game. Right, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
it's fair.
The tight end
point,
12 was Hunter Henry, and he gave us 9 points a game. So it's like I'm not talking crazy, but I'm still leaving the light on for Kyle Pitts.
I get it. Like you said, it is the tight end 12, so it's not like you're putting up crazy numbers here, and I'm going to sit here and say you're crazy about Pitts.
It's actually crazy that I just even mentioned that the tight end 12 is only 9 points a game.
Right?
Like, what are we talking about?
It's such a dumb position. Sorry, tight ends, but like, come on, man. That's why I'm never going to sit here and take him early. But no, listen, when it comes to Kyle Pitts, this has always been my thought, even with, that 1,000-yard season, and we've kind of seen that regression since then. Yes, I think he is trying to play through a lot of injuries. I think that's an issue. I hope he can get to this season as healthy as possible, because the prospect of Kyle Pitts was supposed to be so fun to watch. Yeah. And I'm rooting for him because I want to see that. Like, the Florida tape was gross. So to be drafted early, I was totally fine with that pick from Atlanta. And I think the Kyle Pitts argument can play into, we had a couple examples here with young quarterbacks. Tight end can be, that kind of safety blanket. And when the game speeds up and the young QB's in trouble, like, that's the guy they can look to. I think Kyle Pitts could be that guy. I think that's more Drake London in this offense. But yeah, after Drake London, when it comes to pass catchers, if we're leaving Bijan out of it, Kyle Pitts is in the race for sure.
Right. So that's my argument. Again, only arguing for the tight end 12. Nothing crazy special. But those are our top 12 tight end rankings. Before we round it out, Woo, is there anyone honorable mention that you would like to mention?
Yeah, there was one guy on my list that didn't make yours. I have Jake Ferguson at 10. I shouldn't have even told you the number because the numbers are going to change. Like I said, this back half is gonna be switched up for sure. But really my big argument for Ferguson here is give me a fully healthy Dak.
Yeah.
Give me a fully healthy Dak. I think Jake Ferguson could be a massive steal, especially in full PPR leagues. If we look back to Jake Ferguson's 2023 season,
it was great.
Exactly. That's really what that's what I'm banking on here is a fully healthy Dak year. We get back to that 2023 year where he's the tight end. He only has 8 points a game, but there was a few episodes ago where I talked about the points per game for tight ends over the last few years. It's coming down. But he is the tight end 8, 102 targets, 71 receptions, 761 yards, and throw in 5 touchdowns. Like, I would take that from Jake Ferguson all day, every day of the week. And his ADP is in the 10th round. If I can get that for a 10th round pick, sure, I'm in.
Yeah.
And to have, with that season, I would be very happy with. But I think there's upside on top of that, just being in the Dallas offense.
Yeah, I love that pick because every time I think of a healthy Dak, he's always throwing to a reliable tight end, whether it was Jason Witten, Dalton Schultz, and now Jake Ferguson. Like, he always gets them involved, and it's always good things for those tight ends. So if he can stay healthy for 17 games, I could see Jake Ferguson being in the top 7. You know what I mean?
Why not?
Easily. Before we round it out, the one person that I'm going to give you as an honorable mention, this one is absolutely gross. I can't.
Oh, no.
The person I'm going to give you is Hunter Henry.
Oh, no.
Hunter Henry, tight end in New England, but
you're right.
It's so gross. But he's going to he had 98 targets last year.
It's insane.
98
bad targets.
98 bad targets. But it's another year of Drake May, and now they're in a Josh McDaniels offense who in the past have used tight ends that go by the name of Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, Ben Watson. It's a staple in that offense. And Hunter Henry is, is he 30 yet?
He's 30.
He is, yeah, he just turned 30, which, again, that's not a scary age for me for tight ends.
No.
And we've talked about the receiving room for New England, which, by the way, did you see the video for the New England receivers in OTAs? Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. That's not where I thought you were going with that, but yeah.
But with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, the first two,
bad.
They just absolutely dropping passes. There's nobody there.
I can't believe they made it to the NFL.
There's nobody there. So, if Hunter Henry can carve himself out a role and improve maybe on these 98, maybe he gets 100 targets. He's someone who could sneak into your the top 12 for fantasy tight ends.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Like you said, the opportunities are there. I think it could be a 100 target guy, and I wouldn't blink twice at that if we get to the end of the year and he was at 100 targets. You do get the extra year out of May. Obviously the favorable offensive scheme with Josh McDaniels and the success he's had with tight ends in the past. So yeah, and to get him in the 13th round, sure, I'm totally fine with that. Take a flyer on him. Why not?
Yeah, why not? So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is rounding out our way too early 2025 rankings. We appreciate you listening. Hope you liked it. Make sure that you are following us on all of our socials: Twitter at 4th and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at 4th and Fantasy. Make sure you're checking out our YouTube page, leaving a like. If you're listening here on Spotify, give us a rating, leave a comment, because it really helps us out. But Woo, we've wrapped up the tight end rankings, and we roll, baby, into the summertime.
Oh, we moving.
And we're gonna keep giving you content as we roll along through the summer. We're gonna have some other special things for you, ladies and gentlemen. I've was hinting at, we are coming up with our own projections. We're gonna find a way to kind of put that in a neat little sheet for you and have that posted somewhere so you can kind of reference our personal rankings and things like that. But things are popping over here on the 4th and Fantasy Podcast.
Yeah, we did a little schedule planning before the episode today. We got some exciting ideas on the Google Calendar. Maybe some exciting guests too.
Potentially.
The only way to find out is to watch or listen. So
yeah.
that's my case for us.
Right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you listening, and we will see you on the other side.
See ya.